Saul, we learned about his contribution. We learned about his connections with Samuel the prophet and David, his replacement. We learned about his collapse, where he rebelled against God and spared the spoils, you remember, with the Amalekites. His collapse involved jealousy, a spirit sin in regards to David, and how that really detoured his life to where it became the focus of his life. He usurped the office of the priest in offering sacrifices to God. And even though Saul was chosen by God, just because Saul was chosen by God doesn't mean that Saul got a free get-out-of-jail card on all sin. That because he was in a position of authority, in a position where God chose him to be his king, that Saul could do whatever he wanted. And that's true for all of us. Just because we've been saved, just because we're a child of God, just because we hold a position in the church or whatever, it doesn't mean that we get away with things. It doesn't mean that God says, well, I'll just turn my head and won't look at what you did as far as sin in that area. Boy, we learned that from Saul. We learned God's chastisement upon Saul, his refusal to guide him, the taking away of the kingdom. Samuel told Saul of his coming death. And then some spiritual lessons. And if you have your handout from last week, these will be some blanks that you want to fill in on the last page of your handout with Saul. Number one, incomplete obedience. Incomplete obedience, which is really disobedience, robs us of God's blessing. And it also robs us of being used by God. And that lesson is true in the life of Saul. He had the blessings of God upon him early in his reign, but boy, how those things changed when he began to make sinful decisions in his life. One author said, Israel's first king, Saul,